Greetings, everyone. How are we doing today? I can say welcome to week 6. I can't believe we made it to week 6. I'm sitting here like, where is the time going? This time has truly been flying. It is my hope that you're progressing well, and I hope that just walking through Module 5 discussion, learning how to locate those assessments and understanding how to draft that budget and funding using some helpful resources as well as the ebook was very helpful for you. And so, as we progress through Module 6 now, I wanted to take a moment out to do just a quick video because a few of your colleagues have given me a call and said, Dr. Bell, that was great feedback. I would have never picked that up. But now I see how the course is actually asking to complete the assignment. So, just to kind of lead and guide you on the right track for Module 6 and just to make sure everything's okay, I would like to take a moment and just review the discussion assignment as well as your assignment just to ensure you're on the right track for creating your discussions and formatting your papers with the correct content. So, to begin, I just want to share that always look at the module overview. This week, we're going to be analyzing the data to be present. And so this involves basically the board of directors. Uh, mm, CEOs, executive directors kind of have a little hand in it, but most of the time your board plays a major role in, or should I say, your board should play a major role in ensuring that the program is running correctly, the clients are being served, the need that the clients have, the agency or the nonprofit is providing it in a way that it meets exactly what the clients are coming in to seek. So the board tends to kind of oversee all of that. They play a big role in researching and disseminating that research and presenting that research and so on and so forth. Or they work side by side with the program director, executive director, or CEO to make sure that the research is actually executed and that there are some results to determine if the nonprofit is providing effective services to the clients enrolled in the program. So let's take a quick moment to review Module 6 overview because this sets the platform in terms of how you're going to complete your discussions as well as your assignments. So, for Module 6, we're going to learn about interpreting and disseminating data. Interpreting data means that we're going to conduct the research. In the last module last week, you all had to develop some questions as it relates to each category of the assignment instruction. And then after that, you were to reach out to a program director or maybe an executive director or a CEO of a nonprofit, and this week interview them and interview them based on the questions that you have developed to learn more about how a nonprofit is run. And then later on, we're going to talk about how you can integrate this into your 6-1 discussion interview summary, which is kind of like a summary of what you've done. All right. So, in addition, you're going to learn about presenting data and the role of the board of directors. Like, what role do they play in presenting the data? And how well they make sure or ensure that the data is accurately represented according to the services that's being provided by the nonprofit. You're also going to learn a second part. So this is a two-part again, where you're going to develop more about developing a job description. Let me say right here, developing a job description and how this job description can be an important component to staff retention. Now, let me reiterate this again. Program directors, CEOs, executive directors, they do not oversee retention and recruitment. In chapter 9 of your course text, around pages 270 and on, in that particular area, it talks about human resources management, overseeing staff retention. So right off the bat, you're going to know that anytime that you hear anything about staff retention or recruitment, you know that this is going to be the component of human resources. Okay. So just kind of think about like if you're shopping at a store or if you're at a retail store, anywhere of that particular situation or business, the manager's not going to recruit you. There is a human resources that goes out and advertises those positions that are available to recruit. Human resources oversees like the raises and so on and so forth. Managers only report what's been approved. So they're not the ones that take it all in their hands and make all of those important decisions. Mm-mm. It is the human resources department working in collaboration with either the store manager, the business owner, the executive director, or the founder. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at now. Well, now that we know that we're going to be analyzing data to present, this key heading right here tells you that you have to create data in order to analyze it. You have to collect data in order to analyze it. So even though it says we're going to be analyzing, that means that the data that you're collecting is going to come from your interview questions provided in the previous module. So just to be mindful, this particular assignment every overview tells you what's going to happen, but no particular course gives you an exact step by step by step by step by step. They have to leave that room open for you to insert your creative thinking and research to support and validate how you're going to respond to discussions and assignments. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the discussion. All right, in your 6-1 discussion, you're going to briefly summarize what you learned about the local nonprofit, which means that first, if you have to briefly summarize it, that means that you have to interview them. So that's summarizing and using your interview questions tell you that this is the heart of what your discussion is going to be about. So after you've interviewed a nonprofit or an agency, then you are to come back and complete this discussion because it tells you right here, summarize. You have to do something first before you can summarize it later. All right, so in your summary for this particular discussion, here is what you're going to report. What is the role of the board of directors? If you want to know the role of the board of directors, your ebook readings for this week in chapter 6 tells you exactly how to explain it, and it's located in chapter 4. You could talk about the board of directors based on your interview and what like basically if they told you exactly what they do, or if the executive director, program manager, founder, CEO, whoever it is, explain that this is what my board of directors do, then yes, you do report that. A lot of students are helpful or I should say like this, a lot of students know that it's helpful to actually come in and locate what constitutes a board of directors. And using your ebook helps you to clearly define the board of directors, but also it helps you to determine if what that agency is telling you is the correct way to do board of directors. So when you look at your discussion and you go back and you see, let me go back to the discussion. What is the role of the board of directors? You can report what they say from based on the summary of your interview, or you can start out by actually defining it and saying, but for this particular agency or nonprofit, this is how they define the board of directors. And we call that synthesizing because you're like doing a comparison between the way it's supposed to be versus the way the nonprofit or agency chooses for it to be. Does that help? All right. So the second bullet says How does the agency seem to follow the latest trends in human services? So now we remember trends. Trends is actually what okay, let me say it like this. Trends is evidence-based research. So you know right off the bat, you are going to go to the Shapiro Library and look up the trends of maybe the social problem that you want to talk about and explore the different types of services that have been provided to assist those that social problem and how it's gotten better over time, or maybe the trend in how the nonprofit is providing services, but they're actually scaling or they're actually revising their their program services in the way that it's more effective to the clients. Does that make sense? So it's either way. If you want to talk about the social problem, like the reason why the agency is built and the trends across time in terms of how that social problem impacts the clients and how the services changes, or you can come from the nonprofit aspect to where you talk about how it's getting more and more redefined to provide exceptional services to the clients. Because sometimes that could just mean adding another program within the program. So those are some key things some key examples that I thought I'd share with you about the latest trends. But always remember, your trends do not come from the Worth textbook. That's actually research, and your textbook tells you that. So you go to the Shapiro Library and you do your research, and the only thing that can prove something is validated is if it's evidence-based. So look at the definition of evidence-based because it has to have research. To give you an example, when you look at the article that is posted to be, I think, to be read for this week's readings, along with chapter 4. The article is Understanding the Dynamics of Board Executive Director Relationship. Now, that's a whole nother title. It's like 7 different titles to the boards. That's why I would like for you to go back to your ebook and learn those different titles so that you can incorporate them into your papers. Because in your final paper, I'm going to be looking for that. So please do not stay away from the bold font and use just the generic writing. I want you to go directly to using those bold fonts because they define the whole aspect of a nonprofit and all of its components. Does that help? So definitely make sure that you actually go to the ebook and look at those bold fonts and look at what they mean and learn how to incorporate that into your discussion or your final paper. Okay? So back to this article. Now, this is a research article that was provided as a part of your readings, just to show you exactly what researching and reporting or what your module reading overview said, disseminating the information. So looking at this particular article, for example, understanding dynamics of board executive director relationships in nonprofits, here's the key that tells you it's research. It's a qualitative study. So research could either be qualitative, it could be quantitative, or it can be mixed methods. I'm going to give you that one in advance because I noticed the ebook didn't really go into details about it, but it does talk about research. So this is actually a research article that provides the information of what the social problem is and then looks at the target population, which is serving youths in a nonprofit. And then it tells you how it introduces the social problem. Then it tells you how that research was done. And then it gives you the results. And when it gives you the results, this is what we call disseminating research. That means it's giving the results of how something was either effective or ineffective. So carefully take a look at this article as you are completing your discussion because it does give you an idea of how research is to be performed in the nonprofit, but every job does research because how do you know if services are effective without having to do research? You have to develop interview questions to survey your clients. You have to develop what we used to call them internal questions to determine if the program services are appropriate for the clients. Is the staff appropriate to work with the clients? All of these key things. So just kind of take a look at this particular article. Look at how they perform their data collection and what do they say, and then look at their target population, and then how they data analysis. That's the key. Analysis means to analyze. Look at how they analyze after completing all of the interviews, because that's exactly what your discussion is related to. Does that help? And then, of course, they provide the discussion. So this is basically your research article right here. In undergraduate, we really don't use tables. Tables are really for like master's and dissertation levels. So it's not necessary to even use a table. But when you're actually reporting on your interview, like the results of your interview, you're going to really share actually what did the program director, executive director, or even if you interviewed a board of director, what did they say? And then, of course, uh, what is their role? Uh, what is the latest trends they follow in human services? And then also, you're going to do this specific component where you say, do you believe the agency is meeting these trends? So when you answer this question here, this is not a question where you answer based on how you feel. This is a question that you're going to answer based on the knowledge of what you learned in the ebook, because you're going to need to validate why you believe the agency is meeting those trends or why not. So use your ebook to help support and validate that information. You can, if you don't know where trends are, I always say go to the back of the book and you can use the index to search trends. You can use the glossary. I think I use the index because you have a list. It's mentioned throughout the entire ebook. So you have some areas where you can select the discussion of trends as it relates to your particular interview, if that makes sense. And then the last question is, or the last bullet is, provide one example of how the agency adheres to legal and ethical human services standards in its decision-making related process. So for this particular discussion bullet, is actually a two-part. So remember I told you legal is by itself and ethical, I should say, well, let me highlight it. Ethical human services is standards is by itself. This right here, you can pull this information from the National Organization for Human Services. That's the NOHS website. So if you just type NOHS, it ought to pop up for you. It just should populate. When you get to the legal aspect of it, no, we don't want to do that. So when we get to it's giving me the thing. But when we get to the legal aspect of it, this is where you're going to find it in your readings. And I can show you where it is. So the legal aspect is actually overseen by the board of directors, not the program manager, not the executive director, not the CEO, and definitely not the founder. So the board of directors oversee it. So as you're addressing the legal and the ethical standards aspect as it relates to human services, you're going to give two different answers. So let me scroll up a little bit because I don't want to get you dizzy, but let's scroll up. It should be right up here somewhere. It's a very long chapter. Well, it's not a very long chapter if you have the book. It's just only if you are reading it from the ebook. Okay, here we go. Duty of care. The governing board's legal responsibilities. And that's on page 99 of the ebook. So here is where you can begin answering your discussion question using this particular page or section, and then going into how the board does it in the agency or nonprofit that you interview. So, does that help? And I think that's it. And you will have answered the discussion questions. Make sure that you include citations. If you don't include citations, which means that you cite within the body of the paper, just as if I showed you in that article, and you don't cite, but the information is there and it shows up for high plagiarism percentage, please know that you can be charged. So definitely cite in there. Now, when you respond to your classmates, definitely incorporate information from the ebook that can help them learn too as well. So instead of just doing the basic responding. So let them know, based on those agencies, utilize chapter 4 and find some stuff that can help your peers get a different perspective in terms of the discussion. Okay? All right, so that takes care of the discussion. So now let's take a look at the assignment. Okay, here we go. So for week 6, you have a 6-2 short paper job description assignment that you're going to complete. Please note that when you see this here, even though it's asking all of these questions, this is not a list paper. Like you're going to say yes, no, maybe so, certainly. It's not a list paper. It's actually asking you to when it says explain, you can't list and explain. You have to either explain it or list it. But so for your assignment, it's asking to explain, it's asking to describe, it's asking to compare. All of these require paragraph discussions. So just to let you know, please do not submit a paper that lists the responses to these questions because that will be a 0. You literally have to explain it, okay? So let's take a look at what this assignment says real quickly and what are some best ways that you can answer it and how we can, explore it and being more creative. All right, so it gives you an overview it goes back to tell you about the organizational culture and it looks at staff satisfaction. So it talks about how those two key components are very important in service delivery at any nonprofit. Program managers, here it goes, it gives you a heads up, and nonprofits should be familiar with the connections between how the jobs are advertised and the types of agencies, the type of people the agency wants to employ. Notice it said it should be familiar. It doesn't say that they should oversee it. While money may be a potential worker's prime motivator, nonprofit leaders must know what will draw the best candidates for the position. They only have to know. In this short paper, you will the, look up the definition of research and look up the definition of analyze because that means that you're going to discuss it and provide information from journal articles or evidence-based peer reviews located from the Shapiro Library, like I showed you in week 5, module 5, week 5, on how to go into the Shapiro Library and type in keywords to locate articles that supports your assignments. So you're going to research and analyze some job descriptions. If you want, you can use the web for this one, the websites for this one. The only thing I say is websites are good, but the owner of the website has the potential of changing their informations. And we've seen that happen. So students have used it in their papers, and then when we went to go and instructors go to verify, now they've got something else up. So that's why it's important to utilize the Shapiro Library to locate journal articles like the example that is provided as an additional reading for this week's learning. Okay. So research analyze job description to determine which components are most important when an agency advertises to fill a position. Remember to demonstrate. Demonstrate means to clearly provide an understanding of your ability to see the connections between, here we go. These are three different components. The structure, that's one. The culture, that's two. The budgeting, that's three. So now it tells you exactly what you need to know. This particular section here just says you just need to know this. Your directions tell you what you're going to need to do. All right. So in the nonprofit agency's board of directors, so we know that chapter 4 talks about those board of directors. So we're not going to think hard. We're just going to bounce back to chapter 4 and let it educate us. So chapter 4 talks about board of directors often hire. Now here we go, where we see the board of directors they take over and they hire executive leaders for the agency. The CEO does not do that. Program manager doesn't do it. The founder, none of them. It is the board of directors. After reviewing this module's required resources, research an executive director or senior level, right here, management position at a local nonprofit, maybe in your community, maybe in your state, or you can go to the internet and use Indeed.com because they will tell you to as well, or any similar. Um, if you want to utilize the Shapiro Library, they tend to be more detailed. So if you can look up and get a description on, and you should be able to, depending on what your key words are. So that's why I said the way I said it. You kind of have to be a little bit more clear and to the point when you're looking for those job descriptions there. But if you once you find that information, yeah, and actually you have to research two positions. You're going to submit a 2 to 3 page paper comparing job descriptions you discovered. Okay, here's your first heading in your paper. So remember, include your title page. This heading should be most of you all use an introduction, and I so love that because that's how, if you look at any journal article, that's how research is published. They go back and they introduce it. And of course, here you can see at the top, it tells you, you've again, it reiterates. So your overview is kind of like an introduction because it's revisiting what you have already learned, or it's revisiting the key information that's going to help you complete this assignment. Did that help? All right. So here are your headings. You're going to do key descriptors of organization, and then you're going to answer these particular questions right here in paragraph formats with citation from research, whether you use IndeedJobs.com, you use the internet, or you use the Shapiro Library. You're going to answer them and include the citation to show where did you get that information from and how do you know it's true? So citations help to validate that, okay? Your next heading is going to be essential job functions. So this is where you're going to go in detail and talk about what those two positions do. When you compare and contrast or compare agencies, the way you do that is you would have one agency you would describe in a paragraph format, another agency you would describe in a paragraph format, and your third and fourth or your third paragraph actually does the comparing and the describing. Because you have to inform the reader what those agencies are about, what kind of services they provide, and then how those key descriptions, um, how those descriptions either compare or, I'm gonna say it like this, either are the same or different from each other. And what are some of the key components of that organization? And then, of course, you're going to discuss how the organization's culture. Notice how they put organizational back in here. Organizational culture. If you don't know what that means, it's in your ebook. You can look it up. Just type it in. It'll pop up and give you the definition. As summarized in the description, impact service delivery. And now, when you get to your essential job functions, you're going to describe them. Describe them first and then compare them. And here's the breakdown to tell you how to do that. What are essential functions on a job? Like for each position, what do they do? What are some examples of what they do? How do the functions compare between the two organizations? Are they the same? Or are they different? And how do the job functions impact the quality of how well services are provided to the clients enrolled in the program? Remember, support your claim with evidence-based research. Third heading, job requirements. Accurately identify and compare required knowledge, skills, and abilities of each organization. And this is how it's going to be done. What are the job requirements? It's these three right here that's going to tell you how to answer that. Are required knowledge, skills, and abilities included? And you can say yes, they are, and no, or no, they're not. If some of it is, definitely describe it. What is the minimum educational level? Do you have to have a bachelor's degree to get it? Can you get it with an associate's degree? Or do you have to have a master's? How do the requirements compare between the two organizations? Compare me. How are they similar or how are they different? And how do the requirements for each position impact the quality of service? So up here, you're comparing and contrasting. Hold on, don't want to confuse you. Let me get it back up. Here, you're comparing and contrasting job functions. Like, what do they actually do? And here, you're comparing and contrasting the requirements. Like, what does it take to get this job? What kind of skills you must have? And then when you get to work environment and physical demands, here is where you're going to explain. Explain means to say it out in paragraph format and compare the work environment and the physical demands of each organization. And how you're going to do that? You're going to talk about where the physical demands are and the work environment of each organization. How do they compare? And how do they impact service delivery? Now, when we get to the last heading of your paper, and some students are very excellent, they put conclusions and they summarize, which I love it because it makes it a full-blown research paper, but it's not required for this assignment. It's just if you want to go above and beyond to be the best of the best, and just to enhance your knowledge to prepare you for your final paper. I would encourage to include a conclusion, but like I said, it's not required. When you get to the compensation section, this is where we're talking about money. So you want to know what those positions pay to hire in those roles. If you don't see a salary in that description, I would encourage not even to use it because you want to pull something that answers every single area of your assignment. So identify and compare the compensation information, like what do both jobs offer? What do they pay in salary? And of course, if the compensation is included, how does it compare? Does one get paid higher than the other? Does one provide more services but pay less? Or does one provide less services and pay more? And then, of course, how does that compensation impact service delivery and the organizational culture? And with that, you can research. Like people who get paid more as a program director in a nonprofit tend to be more successful and feel valued to carry out the job duties. And then people who get paid less may feel a little bit more frustrated and experience job burnout. So that's something I can research to answer that section. Did that help? All right. Hopefully it did. So you won't have to be long-winded because it's a 2 to 3 page paper. I have some of you really call and say, Dr. Bell, can I actually stretch it to 5? If you really want to, that's fine. But I wouldn't say don't go past 5. You don't have to publish a book on this because you already have a Module 7 paper that's coming up. So just definitely give some pinpoints because in the end, you're going to put all of your assignments together. They're going to be compiled into your Module 7 final paper, and you're going to pull out what's needed for that Module 7 only to construct it. So try not to just do all that extra writing, but definitely know that content from your ebook, content from your research, citations, formatting, all of that is what makes an exceptional paper. Okay? All right, so that's it. So if you have any questions or concerns, you know to give me a call. I'll be in my office tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday, April the 8th. I'm going to be in here all day, so definitely give me a call, or you can shoot me an email. I've answered all my emails, so they've gone down. So you can definitely shoot me an email. But go back to your ebook. Make sure you look up those definitions. Learn what that board of directors do because they just about do everything with the exception of human resources. They work to make sure that agency or that nonprofit does what it is designed or built or says it wants to do. So they oversee everything. And then, of course, we definitely reviewed the article that's added into the assignment readings. Take a look at this and learn how research is actually conducted and reported or how it's analyzed and disseminated. Okay. And then, of course, you definitely know how to complete your discussion with supporting citation and references to your ebook, and of course, your responses from your interview. So, with that being said, if you have any other questions, that is it. That is actually the overview of what we're doing this week. Definitely reach out to me. I am here to help. I can't stress it enough. So definitely let me know if you get stuck. Let me know if you want me to take a look at a draft. Definitely let me know. But all in all, I'm here. Okay. All right, so it's my hope that this has been helpful for you, and I look forward to reading your discussions and responding and reading your paper as well. All right, take care. Have a great night, or a great day, or a great week, and I look forward to seeing you in the discussion area. Bye bye.